Hey, I get into some random stuff. Today I'm replacing the pads and rotors, front pads and rotors on my Audi A7 2017. I don't know which other models it covers, but I don't know. I think there's a generation switch somewhere at like 19 or something like that. So, and like I'm just showing you what I know. This is not a recommendation or anything. If you don't know how to change your own brakes on a car, like don't even try. Just take it to the shop. But hey, with that said, I'm gonna show you what I needed to do it and how I did it. So here goes. Okay, so here we got the car set up, jacked up. This is where I put my jack stand, probably not the best place, so I just wanted to have a measure of safety. These Audi calipers are some of the biggest I've ever changed or worked with. Pads and rotors, also the biggest I've ever worked with. So, but I think this video will help anybody out that's looking to do this job. So what's coming off is a rotor, 2 worn pads, and some sort of spring thing, and a sensor that detects when it's faulty, or when the pads are worn out. And I think basically the circuit breaks or something once this thing indicates the pads are worn out. So probably you can't just like replace the sensor or let it ride for a little bit. And so what I needed to do this job was hearing protection. I needed a headlamp, some needle nose pliers, 2 flathead screwdrivers basically for prying. I don't know if you have a Torx T30. That will be necessary. I used my 1/4 inch wrench and a blank screwdriver to get one particular bolt out. The 17 millimeter socket is for getting the lug nuts off, and the I suppose they're lug bolts actually. And then the 21 was to get the caliper support bracket off. I don't know. I used an adapter because I used a 1/2 inch socket for everything. I needed a T45 Torx and a 9 millimeter hex. I call it an Allen. I needed a couple pieces of rope to support the caliper. I needed stout hammer and a breaker bar. Oh, and also, of course, whatever socket wrench of your choice, and a couple of pretty light duty clamps. And I used some penetrating fluid too. All right. Show you what I'm doing. I'm using some CarQuest parts. They're the top of the line of Advanced Auto Parts. Okay, and these platinum painted rotors, I probably would have gone with dipped or plated or whatever if they had them in stock. But these look great. These are the top end, and then these pads, complete kit with the sensor, some springs, and everything else needed, including the grease. So that was a pretty nice setup. All right, so I've done one side of the car, the driver's side. Getting ready to come over here and do the passenger. All right, so we got the wheel off. So first off, I'm gonna take out this, and we're gonna remove, okay, so I've got the right hand passenger side wheel off. Gonna use the Torx 45 on this guy, and then And take out a couple of caps back here. They're just like plastic caps that go over the caliper pins. All right, so I've just got my screwdriver back in here. Just, working this plastic cap out. Trying to do this one-handed, but anyhow, you can see that looks like. There's another one down lower, and then this bolt's coming out. It reveals this cavity in here as the plate comes off. I'm going to be reusing that bolt and that plate. And then these, this spring here is one thing we gotta get out of here. And one way or another, boom, gone. All right. Okay, so now I've got a 9mm hex wrench. There's a lot of threads on these bolts, so be patient. But I found they weren't torqued down too much on the way in, so I think you probably got to watch out for the actual torque spec as you're working on these pins. Well, when you go to reinstall them, that is. Okay, now here's a little trick I learned along the way. So down in there's this the threaded bolt. It won't clear itself, so you gotta get a wrench in there. I know this isn't very easy to see, but there's some threads in there. You get a wrench in there, not a wrench, but a screwdriver, and kind of push that bolt back so it's clear of the housing so it can slide off. All right, so I did that. I've been on this side and this side. I take a screwdriver, kind of work it into that groove between the pad and the rotor in order to back that caliper off. Now, I'd be really careful doing this if I was keeping these rotors, but since I'm replacing them, I'm not too worried about damaging anything. All right, and with all that done, this thing should be ready to pop off. But one thing before you do that is you want to support it. Okay, with a little bit of finagling, got that done. This caliper's ready to come out. You can have a good look at the pads there. Inspect the rotor. Look all around the place. I'm going to swing this out of the way so I can get to this caliper bracket right there. Okay, with this caliper bracket, there's these two bolts here. 1, 2. They're 21mm, and they had some pretty good torque on them. So I'm gonna put my socket on there and hit it with a sledgehammer. Yep. So sledgehammer did the trick. So just gonna loosen those bolts up, and then this will come off easily. All right, with those bolts removed, this thing kind of just falls right off. Let's see. Next step is the uses T30 Torx right down here on this little bolt to separate the rotor from the hub. Yeah, so for this bolt, I used a combination of the driver and to get it broke through at first I used a little 1/4 inch on that. It was pretty stuck on there. If I had a better tool for that, I would use it, but that's what I had. All right, so now this thing should be free to come off, but it's not gonna. All right, so that's where this is gonna come into play. Since I'm not reusing this rotor, I'm gonna wail on it a little bit. Yeah, about 5 or 6 smacks, and the thing broke free. So now this is a heavier than your typical rotor. So that's off. It's actually really impressive. See how those fins go all the way through? Pretty amazing. Audi's cool. All right, and now I'm gonna give this a look over. and move on to getting those old pads out. All right, well, technique on the pads pretty straightforward. You just pop them out. They've got, I'll stand here for a minute. Okay, they have, I just swung at them and they just fell out. So, all right, so this was the, this is one of the pads. You can see kind of worn down pretty thin, particularly compared to new. So feel good about this investment. One thing to keep in mind, you see here, these pads are not the same. You will need to pay attention to that. These go on the outboard side, or this side of the car, and then these with the prong on top go toward the inside of the car. Those prongs and everything, they fit inside those holes in the calipers. So my next step is to put on some clamps and kind of drive those pistons back into the housing. Okay, with those two reseated back in the housing, the removal's done on this side. So I think when I get into this, I'm going to find where the other sensor goes, but at this point I haven't found it. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you where it would go and where it went on the driver's side. So next step here is I'm going to continue swing this thing out of the way. It's supported by that rope. Very handy, because you don't want to put the strain on the hydraulic hose that feeds the brake line, or whatever, the brake line. And then we're gonna clean up a little bit, but otherwise, this is ready for a rotor. Okay, here's a big friggin' rotor. Brought to you by CarQuest. Just kidding. I am not a YouTube sensation, and I do not have any kind of affiliation such as that. So I'm just a dude trying to get this awesome car running again. If you have an Audi A7 or something of that sort, you know what I'm talking about. They're designed to run on the Autobahn, so they need these huge brakes to go from 100 to 0 in no time. So anyway, I'm just going to put this on. I'm going to line up the bolt holes, and in particular, I'm going to line up the hole that takes that little bolt. Okay, there we go. Got that little guy started. There's a couple of, so I do work in drivetrain, or I have spent some time in the drivetrain industry, and there's a couple of pilot shoulders on here to get this thing nice and true. So just pay attention to that. You know, if it's sticking out a little bit or things aren't quite lined up enough, you probably haven't pushed it back on the primary shoulder. So anyway, pretty definitely wrong if it's wrong, and definitely right if it's right. So look for that. Next step. Oh crud. Back up. All right. I thought for a sec I had to put this bracket on before the rotor. That's definitely not right. And you know that if you've done this job before. Moving on to putting that housing back on with proper bolts. Just got it. Okay. Good times. Just gotta keep on wrenching on this. Pretty long threads. It's an important bolted joint. All right, those are tightened down. Look up your torque specs so you get that right. Now this is a good time to apply grease to these 4 tabs. All right, so this isn't going to be elegant, but we're going to put these doodads back in. And the other side, I had to bend these tabs back a little bit. Hopefully they'll go in without too much trouble. Also, you know, I just used the grease. So anybody that's done this before knows, you know, you put the grease on the parts that are going to slide against one another to reduce the squealing. Really important step. Another really important step, don't get the grease on anything else. In particular, the friction surfaces, because then, well, I imagine it'll just bake off, but anyway, clearly you don't want grease where you want friction. So, okay, I'm attempting to install this here pad, and it gives you a few good windows to look at it. I find those tabs are just too doggone like spread out in order to get in there. So yeah, I am going to. I'm going to give it a little bit of a bend to help these guys go in their home. So what I did there, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but what I did there was give a little bend to that so it wouldn't butt up against the wall of the piston, but rather be able to go into the holes in the piston. If I was a better video editor, I'd be speeding this part up. It's not. Yeah, I think it's going in. All right, one side's in. Two sides. There we go. All right, not the best video, but I got one of the pads in. Now for the other one, this is the one without the extra tab. That goes in there. It's going to go on the outside, and I think this one should be a bit easier. Boom! All right. Okay. Did I open up the pistons enough? I did. It's slid right on there like butter. And undo my rope. Oh, I should have set this. Okay, yeah, so it's on there now. I'll remove the rope. On rope. There. The little burnt end of the nylon rope is stuck. And okay. So those bolts that hold the caliper in, they're still in the hole. So I'm just gonna push them into go in their home. Next up is that 8mm hex again, and fascinating. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, so I hit a little snag there, but let me give you a tip. Okay, so the bolts, they don't slide right in real easily. So I took my 9mm. It's got an adapter on it. That's what you're looking at there. Put that in the bolt. Lightly tap. Drive that bolt in so it makes contact. Then go ahead and wrench it down. And did you a favor, 28 quarter turns with the ratchet to get it all the way in. So if you're there for, 40, maybe you start questioning, hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong. All right, so got those torqued down. Careful with your torque, look it up, see what it's supposed to be. I'm not gonna, well, first of all, I didn't do that, but even if I did, I wouldn't say what it is here because it might be out of date or who knows what, and I don't want to be, I don't be responsible for anything you do. So let that be known. So next up is this little guy, all right? And I'm going to move around here so it's a little bit easier to see. And we're going to take this plate. This is going to go on like this. Oh, so great. Oh boy. Oh. Doesn't seem to be going on quite right this time. So that's better. Okay. Should have some spring tension there when you put it on. Okay, get a couple threads started, and back to my T45. All right, next, I'm gonna figure out what the deal is with the wear indicator on this guy. Oh, by the way, these caps, took them out earlier. Make sure to get them back in there on the caliper pins. And back with a summary on the wear sensor. All right, this is the wear sensor. Just 2 pins, or two wires inside here. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm gonna guess what happens is this is probably a closed circuit, and then when the pad wears thin enough, it breaks the circuit to tell the car time to get new pads. All right, and I believe it goes in here like this. Push it in there real good. And there's this little collar. There's this little plastic clip. Send that thing through the clip. And on the other side of the car, there's something right about here, and it was a plastic thing. You got to turn it 90 degrees, and then it slides right out. And then it's a pretty standard connection from there. So, but it's not on the right side of the car for whatever reason. Maybe it's on yours, but it's not on mine. So I'm taking this back out. Okay, back out, and all right, this job looks to be all but done. You know, got to get the wheel back on. Should be good to go. Go for a test drive. All right, no more brake light. It actually is braking really nice. It used to have a kind of a wubba, and now when I tap on the brake, it just stops really smooth now. Yeah, liking it. So, mission accomplished. You know, most people say like and subscribe. I don't particularly care. So, just have a good day. Be good to yourself.